Hey YouTube! I'm here to do a review of the Lifetime movie that aired this past weekend, which was titled Surviving Compton, Michel'le, Dre, and Suge. Okay, so of course this is Michel'le's version or her perspective, or should I say side of the story as to how she survived Compton, but really how she survived Dr. Dre and Suge. Now, I believe her purpose for making this movie is because she was not included at all in the N.W.A film, Straight Outta Compton. And my thing is, that was the story of N.W.A. And so, although she was kind of like an unofficial honorary member of N.W.A, she wasn't a part of N.W.A. So I don't, and it was about the like success, like the rise and fall of that group, basically. So I don't know if that was absolutely necessary. Now, for those of you that have seen Straight Out of Compton, I did notice that the women that they spotlighted in that movie for Eazy-E, for Dr. Dre, for Ice Cube, they are all their current wives. So I don't know that they would highlight all the other women that they dealt with, even if they dealt with them for extended periods of time, because for the sake of time, you can't fit everybody in. So fit in who's important to you since they're telling their side of the story. Whatever the case, Michel'le felt like, hey, my voice needs to be heard. Now, as we all know, it's really hard to watch a movie like this, especially when the promo pictures look similar to the promo pictures for Straight Outta Compton, and not critique it and compare it to Straight Outta Compton. But about 10 minutes into the movie, I noticed this budget was not very large, so I definitely like stopped comparing the two. Now, I would say, as far as the characters in the movie, Dre, he was a pretty good match to like what Dr. Dre actually looked like. Eazy-E, like why did they do that to Eazy-E? Like they had Eazy-E looking horrible. Like his hair was fried. Okay, the Eazy-E and Straight Outta Compton was look way better. And Ice Cube, like they just played his life out. Like that makes me think like Michel'le, did you not like them or something? Because they look a mess in your movie. Okay, whatever. And then Tupac, like you cannot mess up Tupac. Like come on, like that really like hurt my heart. Like I feel like every movie I've watched, then they have like a character depicting Tupac, like they always jack him up. Like he cannot be replicated or duplicated. Okay. Okay. Anyways, so next thing you know, the movie gets started, and I would say that. Of course, it's going to be dramatized a little bit because it is like an actual drama, like a movie presentation. So it's not going to be 100% accurate. So we saw Alonzo in the film, which he was the manager for the World Class Wrecking Crew, and that is when they first met Michel'le. Now, one thing I did notice in the very beginning of the movie, I knew this movie was going to be targeted towards domestic violence. And I did not like that her mother and her grandmother taught her that if a man beats you, it is okay. Like that means he loves you because he has that much emotion or whatever pent up. And you know, some men just do it. And they just made it seem like it was normal. She was like, well, ain't no man hitting me. But when the two like prominent figures in your life actually like they taught you that at some point like it's going to come into your mind, and unfortunately that's what happened to Michel'le. But whatever the case, when she, of course, they first met her voice is like really freaking annoying, so they took her as a joke. They heard her sing, and her singing voice was completely different. Now I'm not gonna front, like she really can sing. So at that point, like Dr. Dre, he really like took interest in her. And he would call her over and over and over. Her grandma would keep handing her the phone. But the only thing I didn't like about this movie is that he was calling her day after day after day. However, She had on the same outfit day after day after day. Like, these are supposed to be different scenes, okay? You're supposed to be changing her clothes. Like, this, come on now, y'all could have did better. But whatever the case, it portrayed her to have like a pretty good, like, fun relationship with Dr. Dre and all the rest of N.W.A. and like they were just chilling and having fun. Now, keep in mind, when she got with him, he already had like 3 kids, I believe. I think 2 maybe were still buns in the oven. And she was like okay with that. Next thing you know, at some point, like, she ends up pregnant. Now, before she ended up pregnant, there was a scene in the movie that was like extremely emotional. And I believe that this is when he came home, Dre, and they lived together. And he had punched her. Like, he came in the bed drunk and he just like punched the mess out of her. Like, she was a guy. Like, she wasn't even fighting back or anything. And it's like he was getting joy out of this. And then afterwards, he had the nerve to cry. And then she consoled him. However, this is what her parent, like her parent figures, taught her growing up, that he must love you if he's putting his hands on you, if he cares that much to even go that far. So it was sad. Sorry, Am, that was my throat. It was sad to watch that, and that to know that that's the way that a lot of girls or women are raised. Then there was like a scene where he shot a gun at her. It barely missed her. By this time, her baby with him was born, and and the baby was in the other room. Okay. Then there's also, she went on tour at one point, I believe with MC Hammer. At that point, she found out she was pregnant on tour. She came back and she was 3 months pregnant. When she came back, Dr. Dre had another woman that he moved into the house that they lived in together, and the woman was asleep laying in the bed, and she decided to fight the woman. I'm like, girl, fight him. Like, kill them both. Not like kill them, but whatever. And so I'm thinking, okay, this is like really messed up. And then afterwards, you're like icing your face, and he's like, oh, my bad. Sorry, I moved her in here. You was gone. What was I going to do? I'm like, are you serious? And you stayed with him? You would see him at pool parties flirting with women, and you stayed with him. She literally went into the booth one time when they were waiting on her to like do her track or whatever. This was the first time after he hit her. And she comes into the booth. She wasn't feeling well that day, so she wasn't singing the part right. He goes in there and literally like chokes her up, like about to abuse her in front of everybody. And like people stood back and didn't say much of anything. So it like really just made him look like a monster. At one point, he went on tour. He left her at the house after she had the baby. She basically became a stay-at-home mom because he didn't really care about her success at that point. He left her at the house and he didn't pay the light bills. So her and the baby was just there, and she had no Pampers, no nothing. She called Suge Knight to get a hold of Dre because he wasn't answering the phone, and Suge comes and he makes sure that she has groceries and Pampers and all that, and he basically comes in as like Captain Save a Thought. Now, I only say that because I will explain that later on. Okay, so anyway, it was just kind of like, I don't think Suge is like this innocent person that you're portraying him to be, but I'm realizing that this is Michel'le's perspective. Now, we've always known, I guess at this point, what Eazy-E had called Michel'le at one point when Dre was on his way home and Dre was drunk. So Eazy-E was warning Michel'le, like, you need to get out of there because he's going to come home, he's going to be drunk. Like, it's going to be bad for you. And so she automatically goes to her medicine cabinet, gets a bunch of pills, and she starts self-medicating so that when he hits her, she really can't feel it. Or can't feel it as much. So she's taking pills and she's drinking. She's doing this at parties that she's having. I don't know if it was in her house, but whatever the case, she is messed up and her baby is there as well. Then all of a sudden somebody starts shooting and she's like freaking out, like, oh my gosh, where's my baby? And I'm thinking, why would you, first of all, why are you doing that? Because you're a mother. And second of all, why are you doing that and your baby is in the house? But as we know, domestic violence, probably low self-esteem, probably like an overwhelming amount of fame, probably a slight touch of like failure because she wasn't moving forward in her career, which is all those different things she was dealing with. So at that point, she goes into the studio to beg Dre to like send her to rehab because she got to get herself together. He's like, girl, bye. And then Suge is like, look, if you're serious, I will pay to send you there. So her grandma watched her baby while she went and got herself together. She came back, she was clean, everything was all good. That's when Suge decided to slide in because when she got back, she realized that Dre was engaged to get married. Then he got married. Suge slid in and he was like good. They were good at first, but eventually Suge's true colors came out and he turned out to be a dirty snake too. Um, he had like a fake marriage to her, all this stuff. He had a baby by her. Of course, whenever she was pregnant with their kids, so she has a baby with Dre and a baby with Suge. Whenever she was pregnant, they wouldn't hit her. So her being pregnant in the sense was kind of like a safety net for her. Kind of strange, but you know, whatever. She was basically like forced into quote unquote marrying him so she could take care of his business while he was in jail because he went in and out of jail because he's just like a thug, really. And so, next thing you know, later on in the movie, she finds out that like they're not even legally married. Like all of this stuff is just like a sham. And then she kind of like toughens up and was like, look, like you can shoot me, you can do whatever. If they come asking me questions, I'm gonna tell them the truth. Like I'm done. I'm good with all of this. Now, that was just kind of like a quick run through of like the major parts of the movie that stood out to me specifically. What did I think of this movie? I don't necessarily think it was a bad movie. I realized watching this movie that everybody that was a part of N.W.A. or around N.W.A. at that time where they were coming up and successful or even world class wrecking crew, they probably all have their own story that they can tell, different perspectives. Although they were all at the same place at the same time, they all have their own individual truths. Now, as we all know, this story really painted Dr. Dre out to be like a monster. But honestly, from Michel'le's point of view, if she's being beat by this man, especially punched like she's a man, she probably viewed him as a monster. So that is how she is going to have him be portrayed on screen if she's telling her version of the story. If he were telling his version of the story and she was important enough for him to bring up in his mind, he probably would have portrayed her as like nothing because that's what he treated her like. I don't know. I know if DJ Yella, if MC Ren, if not Dr. Dre and Ice Cube because they already told their stories, but if all of them or DOC, like if all of them told their sides of the story as whatever happened coming up in Compton, it'd all be different. So I don't want to necessarily say, oh, her story is over exaggerated or it's wrong. I think that is her truth. What I do respect about a Straight Out of Compton is that they solely stuck to N.W.A. and the music. Now there were little like hints of a relationship, but as I said, that's with their current wives. They didn't go into a ton of other detail involving like personal matters. Not a ton. We know like Dre's brother died, and that was probably something that pushed him even more to be successful because it was a turning point in his life. But I don't know that it was absolutely necessary for them to bring up Michel'le because if anything, it was probably going to be negative, and why focus on that one negative part because the movie could go for another hour long. I feel like when any of us tell a story and we tell a story and it's involving ourselves, I'm not making anything okay for Dre because I do not like domestic violence. I don't respect a woman beater, anything like that. However, I feel like if I'm telling you a story that involved me, more than likely, I'm going to put in all the good parts and I'm going to omit some of the bad. That's not to say that it didn't happen, but if I'm telling the story, I'm not just about to just dog myself, especially if I'm putting money on this. I'm going to show you what I want you to see. Isn't that what we all do every day when we go out into public, when we go to work, when we deal with people? We show you what we want to show you publicly. And anything else within our private life, you're going to have to be that close to us to really know like the real deal. But other than that, I mean, I feel like I respected in a sense Dre because he has a child with Michel'le. So the fact of not bringing her up, because if you can't bring her up in a positive way, really you probably shouldn't bring her up at all because you now have a child together that understands. Michel'le, the fact that she has a child, whether they're 26 and 14 or however old they are, I don't care about the age. I felt like if I were her, I know that she wanted her truth to be heard. If I were her, her movie about which was based on domestic violence was a great Lifetime was a great platform for that. However, I may have told the story but had different characters and it was based on a true story. Now, a lot of people may have realized when they see Michel'le is one of the writers or producers of this movie, okay, maybe this is actually her life. She just changed a few things in there. Okay, I just feel like it may not necessarily be fair to the children that she put this out there about their fathers, like publicly. Now, I know that Michel'le has said herself in an interview, I told my kids the like low down, dirty, raw truth because I don't want them to hear it from somebody else. I want them to hear it from me. That's fine. I just feel like me, like being a child and a grandchild of someone, I know that things in my family are not perfect, and there may have been things that I heard about people in my family in the past. I heard the story. I may not have been alive when these things were happening or old enough to be able to remember, but it's easier for me to get past that and have my own connection and relationship with them because that was so far in the past and it's just a story. I can only use my imagination. But if my mother or aunt or grandmother or whoever were to go and make a movie and it is depicted on screen, I would feel a certain type of way towards whatever individual did that to them. Like I would look at them like, man, you are really like a sleazeball. You are a monster. Don't come near me. I can't believe you did that to her. That's gonna slightly affect the way that I feel about you. Now I know that her kids are older, so they don't have to have a relationship with their fathers if they don't want to. That's fine. At the same time, I wouldn't have made that movie because I feel like if we all have parents that are living and breathing and both parties are willing, or even if they have a change of heart at some point down the line and then they're willing to have a relationship or try to rekindle something or have some type of connection, then I think that option should be available. So I feel like her making that film maybe just makes it a little bit more difficult because it's like for her to make a movie and Dre never even said the baby's name, Marcel, like you kept calling him that baby, that might make a child feel like, dang, you didn't even love me, like you didn't even care about me when I was born, like you didn't even refer to me by my name. Who am I? Nobody to you? Like a lot of things that happen in our childhood affect us in our adulthood. Even way down the line, we can be 60 years old, but if we never dealt with something that happened in our childhood, it could affect us at 60. So that's why I feel like making this movie is really going to put a damper or could potentially put a damper on their relationships or make them have some type of biased opinion towards their fathers. Now, a lot of people say, oh, her kids are fine, they're cool. Okay, but like I said, childhood issues really affect you. And if you felt like my daddy was out doing this, and that, he was throwing his wild oats and da 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 da, he didn't even care about me and my mom, and he was so disrespectful to my mom, all this stuff, like it's just gonna make you feel some type of way. So for that reason, I thought this is good to put out there to speak to domestic violence, but for the sake of your own family, because fame only goes so far and money only goes so far and people knowing your story only goes so far. I mean, people already knew it's already been a buzz like around like the media. But for you to go out and make the movie about it, I probably wouldn't have done that for the sake of my kids and to know that real life continues on after this. But I don't know. Y'all let me know what y'all think. It was an interesting movie. I'm glad I watched it. I want to see beyond the headlines or something like that. Michel'le's story. I'm actually now really interested in hearing like DJ Yella's story. Like, I want everybody to start coming out with their stories, not like the Aaliyah story, okay? At least have it be on the Michel'le level. So, kudos to her, but you know, we all have our opinions. I thought it was great. If I would have had some type of creative control in it, I would have changed a few things. And yeah, then you won't get any lawsuits, which she does have a lawsuit right now against her from Dr. Dre. But whatever the case. As usual, please like, comment, and subscribe. I really welcome your comments on this video because this could generate a lot of conversation, and I'm interested to have an intellectual conversation about it. Anywho, like, comment, and subscribe, and check me out at mrsblogaholic.com. Bye.